Republicans and vowed to use the Republican majority in the Senate to go after them in response. He threatened to cut federal funding to California over poor forest management in the midst of the deadliest fires in state history. Firefighters say on the ground that the fires have nothing to do with forest management, and of course they would know way better than Donald Trump because he knows nothing about fires. He probably just heard it on a Fox News segment, tweeted out an assault. Like some of those powerful people in the world in the entertainment industry who are suffering from this fire, by the way. Not to mention all the people who have been suffering by this fire, and just people who have family members, who have friends there, and anyone really who was half a heart was insulted by some of what he tweeted was absolutely ridiculous stuff. He took to Twitter to make his really massively unfounded claims of fraud and electoral corruption and massively infected ballots in election recounts in Florida and Arizona, a brazen and partisan attempt to secure victory for Republican candidates in both states. In a month of herring news, noted Cornell University political scientist Tom Popinski, an expert on authoritarian politics, this development is incalculably bad for American democracy. The fact that that last little bit is one of the biggest things, and that really, even after the midterms, just these past 7 days gives you a very, very clear illustration of what the Democrats are up against, what they're playing against, and who their enemy is in the situation. Yes, I say their enemy because it's not about really equality. It's really about protection, not necessarily from the people, the Republican people of this country. I believe they don't. The Trump supporters who go to the rallies, I think what Democrats should do here is, I know this doesn't sound the best, but, there's no reason to include them in anything anymore because you're not going to convince them, and they're going to just stay what they are. So, why not trying to appeal to them would, be utterly ridiculous, but, obviously, they're not, subhuman. Obviously, they're not subhuman for who they choose to support, but they're just not, in terms of electoral plans, I don't think it makes really any sense for those type of people, these Trump supporter rally-going type of people, to be included really in anything anymore because, it's why? It just doesn't make any sense. So we have all those things in the past few days that he has to deal with. And a great quote here from Mehdi Hassan, who's talking about this in his new article for The Intercept here. He says, this far-right president and party that Pelosi wants to do deals with. This is the motley collection of racist misogynists and of con artists and conspiracy theorists that she plans to negotiate a bipartisan agreement with. She wants to lead a unifying Congress. She told CNN's Chris Cuomo last Thursday and hopes that Trump will show a new level of maturity going forward. A new level of maturity from Donald Trump after all the times that Trump was like, I'm going to be so presidential. I'm going to be so... Your head will spin. You won't even know how presidential. You're really thinking that? This is the person who we want to lead us as Democrats coming forward into the new House session. Someone who thinks Trump's going to show a new level of maturity going forward? Are you kidding me? No. Yeah. In September 2017, Pelosi and Chuck Schumer... the Senate Minority Leader, who also prefers rolling over to resisting, went over to the White House to try to persuade Trump to extend protections for young undocumented immigrants, as I'm sure you remember. And yeah, they all went to the White House, tried to persuade them to keep protections in for young undocumented immigrants. As an excited Pelosi and Schumer called a very productive dinner with the president on the subject of the DACA program. Saying we agreed to enshrine the protections of DACA into law quickly and to work out a package of border security, excluding the wall, that's acceptable to both sides. They said after tucking into Chani through the Blue Room of the White House. And guess what happened next? The following morning, Trump threw Pelosi and Schumer under the bus. No deal was made last night on DACA. Massive border security would have to be agreed to in exchange for consent, he said. Pelosi now telling Atlantic's Edward Isaac Dover last week that Trump might support bipartisan legislation where it's comprehensive immigration reform, whether it's Dreamers or whether it's gun safety. You really think this can happen, Nancy Pelosi? Oh my God. What? We cannot have this kind of delusional leader in our midst. This makes no sense. Like, we don't have a smart, competent person writing this who thinks Trump's going to compromise on things like gun reform. Like, what world are you living in? To quote liberal mega donor Tom Steyer, Trump's Republicans are not in the range of reasons on policy issues that have shifted the conversation to places that are so crazy there's no really other side to the conversation. Like, it's just like, no, that's not right. Has Pelosi not even been paying attention to the GOP at this time? That has been led by Trump. It's mounted an assault on everything from voting rights to racial equality to planet Earth itself, as we now know. And if she has, why then the continuing obsession with bipartisanship? She knows politics is not a parlor game where good manners always win out. Sean McElway said in the wake of the 2016 election, he's abolish ICE on Twitter. Go check him out. It involves questions of power and privilege, which cannot be solved merely with bipartisan brunches. Hear, hear, Sean McElway. Thank you. Why can't he be the speaker of the House, honestly? Pelosi was a pretty effective speaker the first time around. Obamacare, Dodd-Frank, the Recovery Act, the Led Better Act, all passed on her watch. Few questions her ability to count votes or the lack of a viable challenge from within the Democratic Party. Although left-wing people are really mounting someone like a Barbara Lee, which I think would be interesting. She has my support to run for speaker because just of some of the people who support her, they know her, they've been talking to her, and I really like that idea of someone like a Barbara Lee coming in there who's a well-known, well-seasoned progressive icon who has a history of doing the right thing when it wasn't always popular. I think it's very, very important to realize. But if you question her ability to count votes, but the job of a speaker in the 116th Congress will, obviously, which will be convening in January, cannot be about passing laws. It'll also be about holding this lawless president to account. Impeachment, therefore, must be on the table, and Pelosi has taken it off by naively insisting that it can be done only in a bipartisan way. But obviously, yeah, times will change. We need to come to that reality, and that'll be very interesting to see how Nancy Pelosi leads the new 116th Congress that will be convening, as we know, in January. And let me just say this: we here at Newsflash, and hopefully you too, as you continue to listen to us, will continue to watch this space as more comes out on this front. All right, Democratic governor of Michigan, Governor Elect Dan Gretchen Whitmer beat Republican Bill Schwett last week in the Michigan gubernatorial election. Whitmer won the Democratic primary in August against two major rivals, Sharif Nadar, a fake progressive grifter, and Abdul El-Sayed, who campaign on a Bernie Sanders-style platform, backing a public option for internet access and a single-payer healthcare system. In February, we reported, and it was widely reported, that Whitmer's campaign benefited from a letter sent by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan encouraging its employees to support Whitmer by donating to their PAC. Whitmer, probably the female Democrat version of Ted Cruz, so obviously you say she's better than Ted Cruz, but still gives you the little bit of the heebie-jeebies there by looking at her as the Democratic governor there. She's very kind of robotic, is pretty much the point. Whitmer's father was the CEO of Blue Cross Blue Shield from 1998 to 2006, where the current CEO, Dan Lope, succeeded her. BCBS, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, raised more cash from its employees. Never had raised more cash from its employees at one single fundraising event. For Whitmer, like they had never gotten more money in any single fundraising event than the one for Whitmer and any other gubernatorial candidate in the past decade. So she was very, very popular. 3 times the amount of Blue Cross's largest contribution this election cycle. Largest other contribution was made after this fundraiser. Whitmer was criticized for Lope's hiring to her transition team, including by the TSA of America's Detroit chapter. Whitmer defended the appointment, telling that Deadline Detroit the Lope will serve alongside medical professionals like Dr. Joe Swartz and Mona Hanna-Attisha to provide critical experience and insights to form a policy agenda that expands to access to quality, affordable health care for everyone in Michigan. In a statement perhaps not entirely appreciated by the Whitmer team, former local politician and Whitmer supporter Bob Ficano told the site, "Let's face it, her father was president of Blue Cross. Expecting she would completely disassociate it from it is unrealistic too. Face it, you have to appoint a guy from your dad's company when you become governor. Everyone knows this." Like, I mean, it's no surprise here. Ficano was previously embroiled in his own corruption scandals, so that kind of gives you a sense of where his mind is coming from. Loeb received a record salary of $13 million last year. Crain's Detroit reported that earlier this year he was the highest paid executive on Crain's list of top paid nonprofit executives, which is funny, compared to 2015 when he was paid a measly $9 million a year. The median income, by the way, in Michigan is $54,909, and the 14.2% of the population is in poverty. Wow. The Detroit DSA actually launched a petition to stop Loeb's appointment, describing it unacceptable and noting that Loeb oversees a company that makes money by denying Michiganders vital services, which is pretty true, and this is something very, very interesting to see that happen. So, Whitmer was already battered with ads by a Republican opponent of accusing her of being bought and paid for by Blue Cross, a ridiculous thing for any Republican to say, of course, but it's relatively true. Like, she's very, very mild. Like, Blue Cross literally gave her the idea of running for governor. That just shows you how so completely tied she is with Blue Cross Blue Shield, and it's just kind of like a merging of minds in a very insane way, which is interesting. So yeah, Democrats will never win the trust of voters, nor will they deserve it if they continue to cozy up to healthcare companies like this. And if we see, like, when Democratic voters see something going on like this, it's very, very, very disturbing, to say the least. Like this is not how we continue. Yeah. So over the weekend, Saturday Night Live's Pete Davidson took a break from talking about his crazy ex-girlfriend, Ariana Grande. Wait, no, he didn't. To apologize for a joke he made on the show about former Navy SEAL and Congressman-elect Dan Crenshaw. If you somehow managed to miss it, Davidson mocked the Texas Republican who lost an eye in Afghanistan with this incredible audience shocking zinger, saying, quote, "You may have been surprised to hear he's a congressional candidate for Texas and not a hitman in a porno movie." Haha, that's so funny because in an eye patch. Like, I would get, like, from, based on what I've heard, like, I heard the reaction before I heard the joke, which is never a good sign. And when I saw some of the people who, like, the way they reacted to the joke was, like, I thought it was actually, like, really, really bad. I thought it was, like, really, really serious. Like, someone was like, "Oh my God, this can't be. This is such a horrible, horrible thing to say." Like, I thought it was actually, like, really, like, super bad. But based on people like Democratic Senator Tammy Duckworth, veteran herself, to Sean Spicer condemning the remark and calling for Davidson to apologize, although Crenshaw didn't. Crenshaw himself told TMZ that he did not think an apology was necessary, which is interesting. So yeah, that's a pretty interesting situation. But obviously SNL did feel the need to apologize, and he was just pretty much bowing to that pressure. This outrage cycle lasted through last week, even though Crenshaw won his race. Then on Saturday, Davidson rolled on to a weekend update. By the way, if he hadn't done this, if SNL hadn't done this, they would face literally no consequences for what was, like, not an absolutely outrageous joke. Like, if you look at the actual joke, and based on what he said, like, I don't see how that's very, like, incredibly offensive. Like, you just can't say anything about veterans these days. Like, there's no way to make fun of it. Like, I mean, he said he lost an eye in war. He said, like, that's why it happened. But, like, I mean, he never said it was good. He's like, "I'm so glad he lost an eye in the war. Like, that's so funny." He never made a joke about him being stupid or incompetent. Like, this was not a very crazy thing at all. Yeah. Davidson rolled himself on a weekend update with a mea culpa on behalf of the show and myself. "I apologize. I mean, from the bottom of my heart, it was a poor choice of words. This man is a war hero and deserves all the respect in the world. And if any good came of this, maybe it was for one day the left and the right finally came together to agree on something. And I'm a dick." Then Crenshaw appeared, and the two shared some hilarious laughs. And yeah, now we're going to actually play the sound to compare my impersonation to the reality, which I didn't think on first glance was that bad. With my Pete Davidson impersonation.
Last week, I made a joke about a picture of you, and I feel like it would only be fair if you got me back and made fun of a picture of me. Does that sound okay?
I don't really need to do that.
No, come on. I deserve it.
All right, I'll do it.
Please? All right.
And now, first impressions with Lieutenant Commander Dan Crenshaw.
Thanks, Colin. This is Pete Davidson.